Get some instant analysis. Welcoming Bryant, McFadden, Barrett, Sallee, and Chip Patterson. Chip, Oregon going on the road, losing to Stanford. We thought the Ducks were going to run away with this. It'd be a victory. They'd stay unbeaten and unbeaten no more. Your reaction?
Really getting penalized here for the fact that for the second week in a row, they just sort of played with their food and thought that the fact that they were the best team in the Pac-12 and 10 to 14 points better than everybody else in the league, that they would just be able to, like this was Arizona, just get everything together in the second half and pull away. And they almost got away with it if it wasn't for Tanner McKee, who was able to, as you mentioned, be able to lead the Cardinal down the field. Now, there are some big picture questions in terms of what this does for Oregon's college football playoff hopes. I actually am not ready to eliminate Oregon in the Pac-12 because I think the win against Ohio State holds a lot of value. And I do think that Kayvon Thibodeau's absence and CJ Verdell's getting knocked out of the game with an injury are things the selection committee could take into consideration. But I'm far more concerned about the quality of performance from the Ducks because we will not be debating Oregon as a college football playoff team if it plays as poorly as it did at times against Stanford, because it won't be a one-loss conference champ. It will have more losses, and it might not be a conference champion. So, yes, I know we want to talk about playoff here, but the number one concern for Oregon is to not be in this position against conference opponents.
And I think that's why you got to really look down the road at their legit playoff hopes, because the team that I saw against Ohio State without the best player in college football was a team that played with a lot of confidence. They was consistent, and they were just physical. And since then, we see them take their foot off the gas week by week by week. You talked about last week, the slow start, just kind of rallying from behind and being able to win that ball game. Then you talk about having another slow start today and then getting right back into the ball game. And then penalties definitely derail their opportunity in winning this ball game. But that's why you never allow the refs to be that much involved. If you take care of your business, you take care of your business. This is a bad loss. I mean, Stanford is a team that has been playing good football at the quarterback position, but in totality, they've been a very, very inconsistent team, to say the least. I mean, they lost earlier in the year to Kansas State. If I'm not mistaken, Kansas State is like 12th in the Big 12. So being able to win today is huge for Stanford. But I don't know how big this is for the Pac-12, because I think going into this ball game, we all felt like this was Oregon's conference without a doubt. And they definitely had an inside track to get in the playoffs, and they still do, but it's going to get a bit sticky based on what happened today.
Yeah, I think we're sitting here in mid-October trying to figure out ways for Pac-12 teams to get in the playoff. And right now, I mean, look, Stanford holds a head-to-head advantage. Now, granted, Stanford lost to UCLA, but Stanford looks like it's getting itself together offensively. Tanner McKee was a very, very highly touted quarterback prospect. He disappeared, obviously. He went on his LDS mission, comes back, and he's living up to the promise that he had when he was a recruit. So I don't think necessarily that this was a fluke. Chip mentioned it earlier, how Oregon kind of did this last game. They thought they'd roll the ball out, and eventually the Ducks would prevail, and they didn't have to do an awful lot. But look at Tanner McKee. He beat him. He was ready for the challenge. So I think Oregon right now, the playoff is sort of secondary. They need to forget about that, because Chip is right. The head-to-head over Ohio State does matter. It does hold some weight. But we've seen Oregon in 2 straight weeks come out flat. And one of those games, tonight's, cost them a tiebreaker to a team in Stanford that is playing pretty darn good football. So, yeah, I'm not really willing to write off the Pac-12 right this very second, but there is very little margin for error, especially considering what Cincinnati did to Notre Dame today.
Chip, how big of a deal, how critical was it losing CJ Verdell and then later Kayvon Thibodeau?
Kayvon Thibodeau more impactful than CJ Verdell, because while CJ Verdell is an excellent running back, I think that in Travis Dye, they also have a good duo. That is a 1-2 punch that has me valuing the Oregon run game as the strength of its offense. But Thibodeau is potentially the number 1 player in the NFL draft. And how many times do we see, especially at an impact position like defensive end or edge rusher, in a crunch time scenario, you just raise your level of play and you become unblockable, and you sit back and you say, hey, that's the reason why he's going to be the #1 pick in next year's NFL draft. I'm sure that they wish they had him in overtime. And Kayvon Thibodeau, to me, even though he missed much less time than C.J. Verdell, who was knocked out earlier in the game, that absence in those crunch time third downs when the game was on the line, I think that was really, really important and an important loss for the Ducks.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, C.J. Verdell's a great running back, but Travis Dye had 96 yards. He was a workhorse as well. So Chip's right. Kayvon Thibodeau, you're expecting him to step up in those key times, in those clutch times. And look, Stanford was in obvious passing situations down the stretch. That's Kayvon Thibodeau's time to shine. So I'm with you 100%. Oregon's strength offensively is that it has running back depth and versatility. So yeah, losing C.J. Verdell, tough break. But I mean, let's be honest, Kayvon Thibodeau, #1 draft prospect for a reason, and not having him in obvious passing situations really hurt.
It hurts, but that's no excuse. They still got to deliver and come through in the clutch and find a way to make a play. Stanford has not recruited on the level as Oregon since Mario Cristobal has been there. And one can say before he became the head coach there, Oregon has recruited extremely well in the Pac-12. They have recruited real well in college football. So yes, you lost one of the best players in college football unexpectedly. You still should be able to take care of your business. If you didn't have a slow start, this game wouldn't have went to overtime. This game wouldn't have been put in the referee's hands. And because of that, you lost. So losing a significant player is always a huge loss, but good teams find ways to still do what they're supposed to do. Good teams win the games they're supposed to win. They did not do that. They were just standing on the eggshells the last 2 weeks, and eventually that shell cracked, and it cracked today.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.